And now KVHC presents Hill Country Lawyer. If you've got legal issues, call Doyle Weaver, the Hill Country Lawyer, 792-5842. And now your host for the Hill Country Lawyer, Doyle Weaver.
Good morning. Welcome to Hill Country Lawyer. I am Doyle Weaver, and we're here today with our special guest, HCL-Bailey. Elsa, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good.
And thank you for being here. Elsa was in the primary, in the Republican primary this last March, running for county attorney here in Kerr County, and that primary's over, that vote's in, and you lost.
I did. Just barely, but still, sort of like
what
horseshoes in elections, almost.
Doesn't count. Exactly what was the vote spread when it was over with?
Well, out of about 8,000 votes, I lost by 200 votes. So if 100 people had voted differently, I'd be the county attorney now.
Right, so you didn't show up at the polls and you didn't vote, so it might have affected the outcome. So, which is an important message for people who don't vote, is your vote would count and does count. So next time you have an opportunity to vote, please show up at the polls and vote one way or the other.
Well, and the important thing for this position and a lot of other ones is that the county attorney abilities or inabilities can really affect your pocketbook and mine. And I certainly hope that Mr. Henneke is a quick learner, but with somebody with only 2 or 3 years of private practice experience and only 4 years licensed, I'm afraid he's got a high learning curve, and I'm hopeful that doesn't end up with us having to pay the price of that. But
right. Well, I think he's our county attorney now, and we're all going to give him our support because we want the best outcome for the citizens of Kerr County. And I know you would be available if he needed your help in any way. Because we want to think about the citizens and the taxpayers in Kerr County, and he's the county attorney now, and we are going to support him and give him all the support we can because we want to assist him in doing the best job that he can.
And I think all of us as attorneys want, in the last instance, to do what's right for the whole community and do what's right.
That's right.
To make the community a better place.
And that's what makes this country great, is we get to choose ever so often on a regular basis who we want to elect as our officials. But once we elect them, they're our officials, and that's the people we're going to support. Let me just ask you, now that you don't have, I see you have resigned now, I suppose, from the county attorney's office.
Yes, I resigned effective March the 31st.
Okay.
And began my private practice April 1st, so I took a long vacation overnight.
So you're already out there in the groove, and
I am
trying to generate that business.
Well, I've been very fortunate that I've already have a number of clients, and so I really had to hit the ground running, and I'm working real hard.
Okay, where's your office now?
820 Main Street, which is the big red brick building, 2 stories, right between the chiropractor on Main Street and Hill Country Cafe and Conchita's building. Did
you take any staff with you when you left, or everybody kind of stayed?
No, my staff all stayed there.
Okay.
I don't know that I have enough business at the moment to be able to pay
staff. I know how that works.
But the other thing is that county employment is better than private employment because there's insurance and benefits and retirement, and I couldn't have asked any of my staff to give that up just to come with me. Although they're a great staff, the whole group of them are really great people.
And I think they're a necessary part of a successful office for Rob Henneke.
They will help him, get up to speed real quickly.
Right. And so what kind of law are you practicing?
Well, of course, I'm doing criminal defense because criminal law is what I know. But I'm also doing some family law. Right now, my main clients are actually administrative government clients, people who have issues with governmental entities. And since I know governmental law pretty well, that's working. That's something I like to do.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Who would be your potential clients? I don't want you to name any names, but what kind of organizations would be interested in that?
A brand new client that I have has an issue with the banking commission and is sort of ancillary to an investigation they're doing related to someone else, and he needs some help getting through that process. So that's what I'm doing for him.
Okay, well, I tell you what, let's take a break real quick, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with HCL-Bailey, former county attorney for Kerr County, and we'll be back in just a moment. Good morning, welcome back to Hill Country Lawyer. I'm Doyle Weaver, your host, and today we have our special guest, HCL-Bailey, who was the former Kerr County attorney here in Kerr County. Elsa, we were discussing earlier before we went to break, we were talking about criminal law here in Kerr County, and in the papers this morning I read that we have a little criminal law decisions going on here in Kerr County this morning having to do with the former district attorney for the 198th District Court.
That's right. I also read that he has pled guilty apparently to 2 counts of misapplication of fiduciary property, I believe. Wasn't that what it was?
I think so.
And apparently the plea offer is for a couple years deferred adjudication, which of course is a probation whereby the defendant pleads guilty, is placed on probation, but if it's successfully completed, then he doesn't have a conviction at the end of the time. And I think the trade-off was that he's agreed to pay some amount of restitution for the amount of money that
somewhere around $20,000.
Right.
But who would the restitution go to?
Well, it'll go back to the state, into the fund. District attorneys have a fund that comes from seized money, seized from criminals, and they're authorized to use it for various law enforcement related issues. And he apparently was agreeing to admit that he misspent out of that fund, so the money will come back into the fund.
Okay, and so the 2 counts, as I understand them this morning, had to do with him. I don't think he directly took any money himself, but he used money to go to allegedly CLE, or continuing legal education courses,
right,
and taking his staff and their spouses to, I think, at least twice to Hawaii.
Right.
And then the other count, I believe, was where he was paying bonuses to his employees.
Correct.
Which would have been state workers.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I understand.
Do you have any, I mean, who funds the staff for the district attorney in the 188th?
It's complicated. A lot of the district attorney's budget is, some of it's paid by the state, some of it is paid by the counties, but of course in the 198th there are multiple districts, multiple counties, and so each county pays a proportionate amount of the rest of that. So it kind of comes out of various places. And of course paying the salaries out of that. The legislature has indicated in setting up that statute that law enforcement purposes includes salaries. In other words, salaries are legitimately paid out of that, but paying bonuses is not permitted. What you ordinarily would have to do with a fund like that is at the beginning of the year say this person's salary is going to be paid out of the fund instead of from some other source. And that's permitted, but bonuses I don't think are permitted.
So it was my understanding that there's actually a prohibition in the law for paying bonuses.
That's my understanding, and of course I only know it from the county attorney's perspective because the county attorney also has a fund. It's not as big as the district attorney's fund, and it comes from hot check money. But that money can be used for law enforcement purposes that the county attorney can pay out of without having to go through commissioner's court. And again, salaries can come out of that fund, but bonuses are not permitted. And in other words, you can't pay for work already done. You can pay sometimes for an incentive for something in the future, but you can't pay retroactively.
And the bottom line is, it's not that he used the funds to pay employees, it's just the way he used the funds, which was paying them a bonus rather than accessing the funds to actually pay their salary.
Right, right.
Okay, and so I guess the district attorney would have it would be up to his own decision as to how much he's going to pay his staff. I don't suppose that's regulated by the state.
Well, and I think that's why the issue of bonuses is so tricky, because even though it's up to the district attorney, the commissioners' courts want to keep track of how much is being paid to whom.
Right, right, because they're guardians of the people's money.
Right.
Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with HCL-Bailey. Welcome back to Hill Country Lawyer. I'm Doyle Weaver, your host, And I have with me this morning HCL-Bailey as our special guest. And we've been discussing politics and law in Kerr County. And let's talk about real quick, because I've got a little circular here that was faxed over, I believe, this morning about the Kerr County Community Justice Program. I think this is a project of the Kerr County Bar Association.
Yes.
And the credit also due to Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, and I suppose that's some kind of cooperative or some kind of nonprofit group in Texas for legal aid.
It is. I'm not spearheading this project, but I'm really proud of it. Of course, you and I are both members of the Kerr County Bar Association, and over the years, you know, it's been more and less active. And this particular board is doing a really good job of getting out in the community and showing the community that lawyers are not just in their offices trying to make money, but we're actually trying to help the community. Of course, Brett Ferguson, who's I think currently our president, has started a project to put playground equipment in a city park in Ingram, courtesy of the Bar Association, and I think that's a great project. And then this is a project I think that Susan Dupre is spearheading, and it's going to be a free legal clinic on May the 13th for divorces. It's primarily focused just on divorces, but for people who need a divorce, need some kind of help with their family law situation, and simply don't have the money to afford it.
Yeah, and I noticed here, just since this is going out on the air, the fax does note that it's uncontested divorce.
Right, right.
So I suppose that they really wouldn't be in a position to represent somebody in a contested divorce. So if you're out there and you're listening to the program, you're interested in this program, this is for uncontested divorces that they're offering these services. So don't show up and ask them to do a contested divorce for you, because it's not going to work. But so this is a free legal clinic. Are there going to be people there who speak Spanish?
I believe so. We have a really pretty limited number of lawyers in our community that can speak Spanish, as you know. But I believe that we're going to have a person or two that can help with that. And of course, it's going to be at the courthouse on May the 13th from 5:30 to 7:30. And I believe that there is a requirement that you call to make an appointment so that we can tell how many people are coming. And I know particularly of 4 or 5 lawyers who have agreed to come and provide their services. People, you know, I'm going to be one of them. I know Susan will be. And that's the idea, is that we don't want to take on some big, huge contested case. But, you know, if you've got a couple of kids and you don't have any money, and you and your husband want to get divorced, but you just can't scrape together the money to get to a lawyer, that's, we can help you divide the property and arrange for custody for the children, get the case taken forward to a conclusion. Well,
let me ask you about this. Even though the attorney services may be free in this case, I know that there's a filing fee with the county. Is there somehow or another, is there some kind of program that takes care of those fees?
I believe that there's an affidavit that can be signed, and it's going to be part of this process that allows those fees to be either waived or extremely reduced. I'm not real familiar with that part of the program, but
so they shouldn't. That might be also a benefit that they might be able to take advantage of if they're poor or they don't have the funds to get this done.
Right.
So they could come out, and they should call. And I think this is really important, because you don't want to show up not unexpected and be standing in line.
Right. I mean, it's only 2 hours, and there's only going to be 4 or 5 lawyers. So.
Right. So let me give the phone number out, and the phone number that they've got listed here on the flyer is a local number, 238-7243. Now, if you didn't get that number, you can call the local station here and ask, and I'm pretty sure they'll be able to give that to you. Or you can call my office. I'll take this flyer back to the office, and I'll be able to provide that number to you so that you can phone in and make that reservation to see an attorney to take care of any. And really, this is just divorces. This isn't about child custody or anything like that.
Right, except as it is handled within the divorce.
Right, it'd have to be a divorce.
But I think the idea of the Bar Association is that we want to kind of expand this or have it again so that we can continue to provide services to the community where the members of the community that really need services that just can't afford it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good idea. I know from my experience that I get phone calls all the time. Some people I can help, and some people I can't, because just quite frankly, I can't do everybody's work for nothing, or I wouldn't
Right, that's all we have to sell is our time, and if we
right,
don't have,
so it's really difficult
to
decide who you're going to help and who you're not going to help. But let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with HCL-Bailey. Welcome back to Hill Country Lawyer. I am Doyle Weaver, your host, and we have today with us HCL-Bailey, who's a former Kerr County attorney here in Kerr County. And we've been talking about local politics, and one of the things that we want to continue to talk about is the local elections with the city council. And I believe the election is coming up on May 8th, and we have some very interesting things going on. And some of you may have noticed the ad in the paper with Mr. Scott Gross ran, and it's pretty good size ad here, and it references Kerrville city limits or the Keebleville city limits. Elsa, what's that all about? What's that controversy all about?
Well, this is an interesting issue that Stacy Keeble, of course, is Rob Keeble's wife, and she's already on the council, and he's running to be on the council. I've had a lot of people ask me if isn't there some prohibition against a couple both being elected to the same city council, and frankly, there's no prohibition against it, but the argument can be made that it excuse me, is not wise, because as Scott Gross says in his ad there, that means that 40% of the city council is in one household. And then I've also heard people say that if the two of them are in the grocery store and they meet another member of the city council and say anything that has to do with city business, they're creating an open meetings violation. Because all city business should be done in the public pursuant to a posted meeting, 72 hours notice, and all those kind of official requirements. And that's not, a lot of people I think roll their eyes and say, well, that's a little bit too technical, but it is the public's business, and it is the public's money, and it is the public's, future. And legislatures have decided long before now that the public's business must be done in the public so that the public has a chance to get in there and put their 2 cents in. Yeah. So, I can see the argument that it's probably not appropriate.
Here's my position, and I think a lot of people probably know the Keebles, and they're probably really decent people. and I'm sure they're
and I think they
good
have
reputations.
The idea that they want to improve the community.
And they're community minded, but we lose sight, and sometimes in our perspective, because we tend to overlook areas of the law or particular ethical issues, because we don't think that the people in power at the time are the kind of people that would abuse that power. But down the road, if we set this precedent about this situation being able to occur down the road, it might not be the Keeples, it may be the Smiths or somebody else, and they may not be the same character that we have in the Keeples. And so now we got a problem, because we should have taken care of this issue before, when we had a chance.
Right.
And then we got somebody in there doing the same thing that aren't so ethical or aren't decent people, and really hurting the community. So I think people need to think about that. This is not a slam against the Keeples. This is just, we need to think in our city whether or not this is really what we want to do. We need to think ahead, not just with the current people in office doing this, but what might occur down the road.
I think that's something that we are very aware of as lawyers, because that's how we're trained to think, but I think a lot of the people that are non-lawyers don't look at it that way. Everything that is done from a legal perspective has to be done on the basis of principle and not on personalities, for the very reason that you just pointed out, that it may be perfectly fine today for these people to be doing this, but if you let them, then you have to let everyone do the same thing. You've got to be even-handed. And if you let a certain group do a certain thing, then you have to let the other group. That's the basis of a lot of our laws regarding free speech.
Exactly.
All of our constitutional rights.
Right.
Your rights are always easy to defend when it's a popular choice. It's when it's a hard choice, they're hard to defend. But you have to defend the rights for the hard cases, because you want the people that deserve the rights to keep their rights.
Right, and that's how we keep our rights, is we exercise those rights, like you said, when it's hard to do, and when it's for somebody that's not all that savory sometimes. It's like a criminal defendant. You may know, or you may have a gut feel that he's guilty of something, but the question isn't whether he's guilty of something. The question is whether he's guilty of what you charged and whether you can prove it. And sometimes people think that lawyers get criminal defendants off on technicalities.
Well, they ask us, how can you represent that person? You know that they're evil. And
well, it's not a technicality. It's called the Constitution.
Yeah, right.
That's the main thing, is when you say you're letting him off on a technicality, the technicality happens to be the Constitution, which we all depend upon.
And an illegal search is an illegal search, and if it lets a criminal off, that's better than you or I having to submit to illegal searches, because all of a sudden the law is that illegal searches are okay.
Right. Well, I think we've pretty much exhausted our time here. We've talked about local politics and some law in Kirk County, and I want to thank you, HCL-Bailey,
thank you for
being here today, and hopefully this has been informative for all the people. And I ask you to tune in again next week as For the Hill Country Lawyer, and we'll see you next week.